Counselor Ani had served on the Galactic Council for nearly 80 years, and in all that time, she had never seen true fear spread through the Great Chamber. She had witnessed wars declared and empires fall. She had watched species go extinct and new ones rise to take their place. But nothing prepared her for the message that arrived on that ordinary morning. The transmission came from a monitoring station at the edge of Sector 7 Omega. The officer who sent it was trembling so badly that his words barely made sense. 3 vessels had crossed the barrier. 3 ships had emerged from the region that every spacefaring species in the galaxy knew to avoid. The isolation zone had been breached. Ani felt her 8 legs go weak beneath her massive body. She gripped the edges of her speaking platform and forced herself to remain calm. Around her, the circular chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives from 47 species shouted over each other in dozens of languages. The translation system struggled to keep up with the flood of panic. Ambassador of the slithered forward, her serpentine body coiling around her speaking post. She called for order in her smooth, calming voice, but even she could not hide the fear in her golden eyes. Admiral pushed through the crowd with the force of a charging beast. The commander stood 9 feet tall, his gray skin covered in ceremonial scars that marked his countless victories. He demanded to see the sensor data immediately. Ani authorized the display. The holographic projector at the center of the chamber flickered to life, showing the edge of council space and the dark region beyond. 3 small points of light moved steadily toward them. The computer identified them as vessels of unknown design, traveling at speeds that should have been impossible. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what lived inside that dark region. Everyone knew the story of how the ancient council had discovered them 2,000 years ago. Ani remembered learning the history as a young hatchling. Explorers from the collective had found a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system. The world teemed with life, including a species of intelligent primates that called themselves humans. At first, the council considered making contact, but the more they observed, the more frightened they became. The humans were impossibly violent. They waged wars against each other constantly, killing millions of their own kind over territory, resources, and ideas. They developed weapons of terrible power and used them without hesitation. They poisoned their own atmosphere and oceans in their rush to build more and consume more. Every projection showed that they would eventually develop space travel and spread their chaos across the stars. The ancient council made a decision that had never been made before or since. They would not make contact. They would not attempt to guide or civilize the humans. Instead, they would contain them. Engineers from a dozen species worked together to construct a barrier of warning beacons and artificial gravity wells around the human solar system. The barrier would prevent any vessel from leaving and discourage any vessel from entering. The humans would remain trapped on their world until they destroyed themselves, as the projections said they surely would. For 2,000 years, the isolation zone had remained sealed. Monitoring stations watched from a safe distance, recording the expected decline of human civilization. But the humans did not decline. They did not destroy themselves. Instead, against all predictions, they continued to grow and develop. The council chose to ignore the warning signs. They told themselves that the barrier would hold forever. They told themselves that primitive humans could never develop technology advanced enough to escape. They told themselves comfortable lies and forgot about the danger. Now those lies shattered like glass. Admiral studied the sensor data with the eye of a veteran warrior. He noted the energy signatures of the 3 vessels, the speed of their approach, and the formation they maintained. He announced that the ships were not attacking. They were not even armed as far as the sensors could detect. They were simply moving forward with calm determination. This frightened the council more than an armed invasion would have. A species that sent unarmed ships through an ancient barrier was either foolish or supremely confident. And humans, whatever else they might be, were not fools. Ambassador asked what the humans wanted. Surely they would have transmitted some message, some demand or declaration. Ani checked the communication logs and found nothing but silence. The human vessels ignored all hailing frequencies. They did not respond to warnings or threats. They simply kept coming. The council debated for hours. Some demanded an immediate military response. Others argued for evacuation of the nearby systems. A few suggested that perhaps the humans came in peace and deserved a chance to explain themselves. These voices were shouted down by the majority, who remembered the bloody history of the species they had imprisoned. Admiral offered to take the combined fleet to intercept the human vessels. He promised to destroy them before they could reach any populated world. But Ani hesitated. Starting a war with an unknown enemy was dangerous. The humans had somehow escaped an inescapable prison. What else might they be capable of? As the debate continued, the three human vessels reached the edge of Council space and stopped. They held position exactly at the invisible line that marked the boundary of galactic civilization. And finally, they transmitted a message. The words appeared on every screen in the chamber, translated into perfect galactic common. The pronunciation was flawless. The grammar was precise. Whoever wrote this message had studied the Council's language for a very long time. The message contained only one sentence: "We wish to speak with whoever imprisoned us." Silence gripped the chamber. Ani felt a chill run through her ancient body. The humans knew. They knew exactly what had been done to them and why. They had spent 2,000 years trapped in their solar system, watching the stars they could not reach, and they had figured out the truth. Now they had come to confront their jailers. Ambassador O was the first to speak. She said that the humans had asked to talk, not to fight. Perhaps they should listen before making decisions they could not take back. Admiral growled that listening to predators was how prey got eaten. He urged the Council to strike while they still had the advantage. Ani raised one of her forelegs for silence. She looked around the chamber at the representatives of 47 species, all of them united by fear of the creatures they had locked away so long ago. She knew that whatever they decided in the next few hours would shape the future of the galaxy. The humans were waiting for an answer, and for the first time in 2,000 years, the Galactic Council had no idea what to do. Ambassador O volunteered to meet with the humans alone. The Council tried to argue, but she silenced them with a look from her golden eyes. Someone had to take the first step, she said. Someone had to be brave enough to face the creatures they had feared for so long. If that person had to be expendable, then let it be her. She traveled to the diplomatic station called Harmony's Edge, a small outpost designed for meetings between hostile species. The station floated in empty space, far from any populated world. If something went wrong, the damage would be contained. The human vessel New Horizon docked at the opposite end of the station exactly on schedule. Awaited in the meeting chamber, coiled around her speaking post, watching the door with unblinking eyes. She had studied every record the Council had on humans. She knew their history of violence and conquest. She expected monsters to walk through that door. Instead, three ordinary-looking beings entered the room. They wore simple uniforms of dark blue. They carried no visible weapons. They moved with careful, measured steps, as if they knew how frightening their presence might be and wanted to appear as harmless as possible. The one in front was a female with short brown hair and calm gray eyes. She introduced herself as Captain Grace, commander of the New Horizon. Behind her stood a slender male with black hair and glasses who said he was Dr. Park, a specialist in alien languages. The third was a female with darker skin and watchful eyes who identified herself as Commander, responsible for security. I studied them carefully. They looked so fragile, so soft. Their bodies had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. How could creatures this weak have inspired such terror across the galaxy? Captain seemed to read her thoughts. She smiled gently and said that humans knew they did not look impressive. Their strength had never been in their bodies. It had always been in their minds and in their ability to work together. Dr. Park stepped forward and spoke in perfect galactic common. He explained that humans had discovered the barrier around their solar system 300 years ago. At first, they thought it was a natural phenomenon, but as their technology improved, they realized the truth. Someone had built a cage around their world. A felt shame burned through her body. She started to apologize, to explain that the ancient council had been afraid, but raised a hand to stop her. The captain said that humans understood fear. They had plenty of experience with it. Their own history was filled with moments when they had treated each other terribly because of fear. They knew exactly why the council had locked them away. They had watched their own ancestors commit the same kinds of mistakes. Commander spoke for the first time. She said that finding the barrier had been a crisis for humanity. When they realized that aliens existed and had decided humans were too dangerous to release, they had to face an uncomfortable question. Were the aliens right? I listened in stunned silence as the humans told their story. For 300 years, they had debated what to do. Some wanted to break through the barrier immediately and take revenge. Others wanted to prove the aliens wrong by showing that humans could be peaceful. The argument divided nations and sparked conflicts that nearly destroyed their species. But eventually, a new generation rose to power. These were humans who had grown up knowing that the universe was watching them and judging them. They decided that escaping the barrier meant nothing if they remained the same violent creatures who had been imprisoned. They chose to change. Dr. Park explained that humans spent 2 centuries rebuilding their civilization. They ended their wars. They healed their planet. They created a unified government that represented all of humanity. They learned to resolve conflicts with words instead of weapons. It was the hardest thing their species had ever done, but they did it. Captain said that humans had not come to seek revenge. They had come to introduce themselves properly, as the species they had chosen to become rather than the species they had been. I asked how the humans had learned Galactic Common. How did they know about the Council and its history? Dr. Park smiled and admitted that humans had been listening for a very long time. They had reverse-engineered the beacon technology and used it to develop their own faster-than-light communication. They had intercepted Council transmissions and decoded them over many decades. They knew the names of every species on the Council. They knew the political debates and the cultural differences. They had been preparing for this moment for generations. The ambassador felt dizzy. The Council had assumed that trapping humans in their solar system would keep them ignorant and helpless. Instead, it had given them centuries to study their captors and prepare. Seemed to sense her concern. The captain assured her that humans had not used their knowledge to plan an invasion. They had used it to understand. They wanted to know the species they hoped to live among. They wanted to learn the customs and laws so they could be good neighbors. Commander added that humans had also been watching for threats. They knew about the harvesters and the other dangers in the galaxy. They knew that the Council struggled against enemies it could not defeat. Humanity believed it could help, if given the chance. I asked what the humans wanted in exchange for this help. What demands would they make? Captain shook her head. She said that humans did not want special treatment or territory or power. They wanted one simple thing. They wanted to be judged by who they were now, not by who they had been 2,000 years ago. They wanted a chance to prove themselves. The meeting lasted for many hours. I asked endless questions and the humans answered everyone with patience and honesty. They did not try to hide their dark history. They showed her records of wars and genocides, of cruelty and destruction. Then they showed her the transformation, the centuries of work that had built a new humanity. When the meeting ended, I returned to the Council with her recommendation. She told them that the humans should be heard. They had earned at least that much. But as she delivered her report, Admiral interrupted with news of his own. The combined fleet had mobilized. 500 warships now waited at the border, ready to destroy the human vessels at his command. The time for talking, he said, was over. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked out at the most powerful fleet ever assembled. 500 warships from 12 different species hung in formation against the darkness of space. Their weapons could crack planets and extinguish stars. Nothing in the galaxy could stand against such force. And yet, as he watched the 3 tiny human vessels holding position at the border, felt something he had not experienced in decades of warfare. He felt uncertain. The humans had not retreated when his fleet arrived. They had not powered their weapons or raised their shields. They simply waited, calm and patient, as if 500 warships posed no threat at all. Either they were incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Could not decide which possibility troubled him more. He opened a communication channel and delivered his ultimatum. The human vessels had 1 hour to return to the isolation zone. If they refused, they would be destroyed. There would be no negotiation and no mercy. The response came immediately, not from a military commander but from Captain Grace herself. Her face appeared on his screen, looking tired but determined. She did not argue or plead or threaten. She simply invited the Admiral to come aboard the New Horizon and see the truth for himself. Almost laughed. Did the human really expect him to walk into an obvious trap? Did she think he was stupid enough to board an enemy vessel alone and unarmed? But something in her eyes stopped him. She was not trying to trick him. She was offering him something that cost her nothing and might change everything. She was offering him a choice. The Admiral thought about his long career. He had fought in dozens of wars and killed countless enemies. He had never backed down from any challenge, and now this soft, fragile creature was challenging him in a way no enemy ever had. She was asking him to be brave enough to see something new. He told his second-in-command to take control of the fleet. Then he boarded a shuttle and flew to the New Horizon alone. The human ship looked strange from the outside. It was not built like a warship. The lines were smooth and elegant, designed for speed and efficiency rather than combat. Saw no visible weapon systems, no armor plating, no defensive turrets. The vessel looked almost delicate. Captain met him at the airlock with only Dr. Park and Commander beside her. She welcomed him aboard and asked him to follow her, kept his hand near his sidearm, expecting an ambush at every corner. None came. What he saw instead confused him completely. The corridors of the New Horizon were filled with life. Scientists hurried past carrying data tablets and speaking excitedly about discoveries. Artists painted murals on the walls depicting scenes from human history. Musicians practiced in small rooms, filling the air with strange and beautiful sounds. And there were children. Human children ran through the hallways, laughing and playing games. They stopped to stare at with wide, curious eyes, fascinated by his alien appearance. One small girl waved at him. He did not know how to respond. Explained that the New Horizon was not a warship. It was an exploration vessel designed to make first contact with new species. The crew had brought their families with them because humans believed that showing their true selves was more important than hiding behind weapons. She led him to a large observation deck where gardens grew under artificial sunlight. Vegetables and flowers covered every surface. Recognized none of the plants, but he understood what they meant. These humans had not come to conquer. They had come to stay. Showed him records of human history, hiding nothing. He watched footage of wars that killed millions. He saw weapons that could destroy cities in a single flash. He witnessed cruelty and hatred on a scale that made even his warrior heart sick. Then she showed him what came after. He watched humans rebuilding their cities and healing their world. He saw former enemies shaking hands and choosing peace. He witnessed generations of humans working together to become something better than their ancestors. Dr. Park explained that humans had learned a hard lesson during their isolation. Violence was easy. Any species could destroy. The true test of intelligence was whether a species could choose to build instead. Humans had finally passed that test. Commander spoke next. She said that humans still remembered how to fight. They had not forgotten their warrior nature, but they had learned to control it, to save it for moments when fighting was truly necessary. They no longer waged war for greed or pride. They fought only to protect. Stood in silence for a long time. He thought about everything he had seen and heard. He thought about the Council's decision to imprison these beings for crimes they had not yet committed. He thought about his own people, and how they would feel if someone had locked them away because of their violent past. Finally, he asked a question. Why had she invited him aboard? Why risk letting a hostile commander see everything? Smiled. She said that humans had learned something important during their long isolation. Enemies became friends when they understood each other. Wars ended when warriors saw each other as people instead of monsters. She had invited him because she believed that he was honorable enough to see the truth. Returned to his flagship a changed being. He called an emergency session of the Council and told them what he had witnessed. He said that destroying the humans would be an act of cowardice, not strength. A true warrior respected worthy opponents, and these humans had proven themselves worthy. The Council began to debate. Some agreed with. Others insisted that the humans were too dangerous to trust. The argument grew heated as species that had feared humans struggled to accept a new reality. Then everything changed. An emergency signal interrupted the session, coming from the far edge of the galaxy. A colony world was under attack. The harvesters had returned, and 600,000 innocent lives hung in the balance. The debate about humans would have to wait. A greater threat demanded immediate action. The harvesters came without warning, as they always did. One moment the skies above the colony world were clear and peaceful. The next moment they filled with dark shapes that blotted out the sun. The machines descended like a plague of metal insects. Each one was roughly the size of a small building, with countless legs and claws designed for one purpose only. They stripped worlds bare, collecting organic material to fuel their endless expansion. No one knew where they came from or why they existed. They simply appeared every few centuries, destroyed everything in their path, and vanished again. Admiral pushed his fleet to maximum speed, but he knew the mathematics were against him. The harvesters would reach the surface in hours. His ships would arrive in 2 days. By then, 600,000 colonists would be dead. He was preparing to deliver the terrible news to the Council when an unexpected signal reached his flagship. The human vessel New Horizon was requesting permission to join his fleet. Captain appeared on his screen with the same calm determination he had seen during their meeting. She said that her ship could reach in 18 hours using human faster-than-light technology. The 2 escort vessels would accompany her. They wanted to help. Hesitated, 3 small ships could not stop a harvester swarm. They would be destroyed within minutes of arrival, but already knew this. She was volunteering anyway. The Admiral asked why. Why would humans risk their lives for aliens who had kept them imprisoned for 2,000 years? Answered simply. She said that being human meant protecting those who could not protect themselves. It did not matter that the colonists were not their species. It did not matter that the Council had treated humanity poorly. What mattered was that innocent people needed help, and humans were in a position to give it. Gave his permission. The 3 human vessels accelerated away from the fleet, vanishing into the light of their strange engines. The Admiral watched them go and wondered if he would ever see them again. The New Horizon arrived with 4 hours to spare. Captain ordered her ship into orbit and began scanning the approaching swarm. The harvesters numbered in the thousands, a mass of metal and hunger that stretched across the sensor display like a spreading stain. Dr. Park worked frantically at his station, analyzing every signal the machines produced. He had spent the journey studying everything the Council knew about harvesters, which was frustratingly little. The machines did not communicate in any recognizable language. They did not respond to hails or warnings. They simply consumed. But as Park listened to the electromagnetic noise of the swarm, he noticed something strange. The machines were not truly intelligent. They followed patterns, responding to stimuli in predictable ways. They were like insects following chemical trails, reacting to their environment rather than thinking about it. Commander understood immediately. If the harvesters followed programming rather than making decisions, then that programming could potentially be disrupted. The machines might be vulnerable to electronic warfare instead of conventional weapons. Ordered her crew to begin developing a shutdown signal. They had 4 hours to solve a problem that had defeated the entire galaxy for centuries. It seemed impossible, but humans had a long history of achieving the impossible. The first harvesters entered the atmosphere just as the Council fleet arrived at the edge of the system. Admiral deployed his 500 ships in a defensive formation around the planet, preparing for a battle he knew he could not win. His weapons might destroy hundreds of the machines, perhaps thousands, but there were too many. The swarm would overwhelm his fleet eventually. He was about to give the order to attack when contacted him. She explained what her crew had discovered about the harvester programming. She asked for 15 minutes to test a theory. Looked at the swarm descending toward the helpless colony. 15 minutes might mean the difference between saving some colonists and saving none, but something in his voice convinced him to trust her. He ordered his fleet to hold position. The New Horizon dove directly into the swarm, weaving between massive machines that could have crushed it with a single blow. Dr. Park broadcast his shutdown signal on every frequency he could think of. At first, nothing happened. The harvesters continued their descent, ignoring the tiny ship buzzing around them. Then suddenly they stopped. Every machine in the swarm froze in place, hovering motionless in the sky. Park had found the right frequency. But the victory lasted only seconds. The harvesters adapted, rewriting their own code to block the signal. They resumed their attack with renewed fury, and now they recognized the New Horizon as a threat. Made a decision in an instant. She ordered her 2 escort vessels to help the fleet evacuate the colony. Then she turned the New Horizon toward the heart of the swarm and accelerated. Her ship became a target, drawing the attention of thousands of harvesters. The machines abandoned their descent and swarmed around the human vessel, trying to tear it apart. Flew with desperate skill, dodging and weaving through a storm of metal claws. 11 minutes. That was how long the New Horizon survived alone against the swarm. 11 minutes of impossible flying while shuttles lifted colonists from the surface below. 11 minutes while Dr. Park kept refining his signal, disrupting the machines just long enough to prevent them from catching the fleeing vessel. When the New Horizon finally fell, its engines destroyed, and its hull torn open. Every single colonist was safely aboard the evacuation fleet. 600,000 lives saved because 3 humans refused to let strangers die. Admiral's flagship reached the drifting wreck of the New Horizon and found survivors. Captain was badly injured but alive, still giving orders to her crew from a medical stretcher. Commander had broken both arms protecting wounded. Dr. Park was unconscious but breathing. Stood over stretcher and asked why she had not retreated when she had the chance. Her ship was fast enough to escape. She could have saved herself and her crew. Looked up at him with exhausted eyes. She said that running would have meant letting innocent people die. That was not something humans did anymore. They had spent 2,000 years learning that lesson, and they would not forget it now. The Admiral had no response. He simply ordered his medical teams to treat the human wounded with the same care they would give his own soldiers. The war against the Harvesters was not over. The swarm had been disrupted but not destroyed. It would return eventually as it always did. But something had changed. For the first time in history, someone had found a weakness in the machines, and that someone was human. 6 months passed before Captain Grace walked again. The injuries she suffered during the battle of a nearly killed her twice. Doctors from 7 different species worked together to save her life, learning human biology as they went. It was the first time in galactic history that so many aliens had cooperated to heal a single patient. When she finally recovered, she received an invitation that no human had ever received before. The Galactic Council requested her presence at an official ceremony on the Station Prime. Humanity was about to take its place among the stars. Traveled to the council chamber with Dr. Park and Commander at her side. Both of them still carried scars from the battle, marks they wore with quiet pride. They had proven what humanity could be, and no one could take that away from them. The chamber was full when they arrived. Representatives from 47 species filled the circular room, watching the 3 humans enter with expressions ranging from curiosity to respect to something that might have been admiration. Counselor Ani waited at the central platform, her 8 eyes fixed on the beings who had changed everything. Admiral stood at attention near the front of the assembly. His massive form towered over the other representatives, but his posture was not threatening. He watched the humans approach with the respect one warrior shows another. Ambassador coiled near her speaking post, her golden eyes bright with emotion. She had argued for peace from the very beginning when everyone else wanted war. Now she would witness the result of that choice. Ani raised one foreleg to call for silence. The chamber fell quiet immediately. She began to read from an ancient document, speaking words that had been used to welcome new species for thousands of years. She acknowledged that the Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake 2,000 years ago. They had judged humanity by its worst moments and condemned an entire species to imprisonment. They had acted out of fear instead of wisdom, and they had been wrong. But the humans had proven something remarkable during their isolation. They had proven that a species could change. They had looked at their own nature, seen its flaws, and chosen to become better. This was perhaps the most difficult thing any intelligent beings could do, and humanity had done it alone, without help or guidance from anyone. The Council now wished to correct its ancient error. The barrier around the human solar system would be dismantled immediately. Earth would become the capital of a new galactic sector, administered entirely by humans. Humanity would have full membership in the Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed. Ani finished reading and looked at. She asked if the human captain wished to accept these terms on behalf of her species. Stepped forward slowly. Her body still ached from injuries that might never fully heal, but her voice was strong and clear. She said that she was honored to accept membership in the galactic community, but before she signed anything, she wanted to say something. The chamber waited in silence. Said that humanity did not blame the Council for what happened 2,000 years ago. Fear was a natural response to the unknown, and humans had been very frightening indeed. They had earned their imprisonment through centuries of violence and destruction. The ancient council had made a reasonable decision based on the evidence they had. What mattered now was not the past but the future. Humanity wanted to be a partner to the other species of the galaxy, not a rival or a threat. They wanted to share what they had learned during their long isolation. They believed that their unique perspective could help solve problems that had troubled the galaxy for ages. She proposed a joint initiative, a combined effort of humans and council species to find a permanent solution to the harvester threat. The battle at A had proven that the machines could be disrupted. With enough research and cooperation, perhaps they could be stopped forever. Admiral stepped forward before anyone else could respond. His deep voice echoed through the chamber as he seconded the proposal. He admitted that he had been wrong about humans. He had looked at their history and seen only violence. He had expected monsters to emerge from the isolation zone, creatures driven by hatred and revenge. Instead, he had found warriors who chose to protect rather than destroy, who risked their lives for strangers they had never met. The Admiral said that the galaxy could learn from humanity's example. Too many species accepted their flaws as permanent, believing that nature could not be changed. Humans had proven otherwise. They had looked at their worst instincts and said no. They had chosen to be better. He told the Council that any species capable of such transformation deserved respect. He was proud to call humanity allies and hoped that someday he might call them friends. The vote was unanimous. Every species on the Council approved the joint initiative against the harvesters. Old enemies who had argued for days about the human question now agreed without hesitation. Something had shifted in the galaxy, a change so profound that even the oldest members struggled to describe it. Signed the membership documents with a steady hand. Dr. Park and Commander stood behind her, representing the countless generations of humans who had dreamed of this moment. Somewhere far away, on a small blue planet that had been a prison for so long, 8 billion humans were about to learn that they were finally free. The ceremony ended with a reception where representatives from dozens of species approached the humans with questions and congratulations. Embraced with her serpentine body, a gesture of deep affection among them. Ani offered formal thanks on behalf of the collective. Even species that had voted to destroy humanity only months ago expressed admiration for what the humans had accomplished. The final scene took place weeks later, aboard the newly repaired New Horizon. The ship led a combined fleet of human and alien vessels toward the galactic rim, where the harvesters were known to originate. Scientists from 20 species worked together in laboratories designed for cooperation. Warriors from former enemy nations trained side by side. Ambassador traveled with the fleet as the Council's official representative. She found in the observation deck, watching the stars streak past. The ambassador asked what humans hoped to find out there, in the unknown regions beyond the galactic edge. Considered the question carefully. She said they hoped to find the builders of the harvesters. Someone had created those machines long ago, and understanding why might be the key to stopping them forever. The galaxy had been fighting the symptoms for centuries. It was time to find the cause. I asked if was not afraid of what they might discover. The builders of the harvesters might be more dangerous than the machines themselves. Smiled the same calm smile that had convinced to trust her all those months ago. She said that humans had spent 2,000 years locked in a cage, surrounded by darkness. They had used that time to become stronger, wiser, and braver. Fear was something they had learned to overcome long ago. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying humans and aliens together into the unknown. The isolation zone was empty now, its barriers dismantled and its warnings silenced. The galaxy had a new partner, a species that had transformed itself through sheer determination. And somewhere in the depths of space, ancient machines continued their endless hunt, unaware that their creators were about to receive visitors. Visitors who had spent too preparing for this moment. Humanity was free at last, and they intended to make the most of it.